We are going to be joined by a guest this morning who will be giving us a lot of more information about value-added tax. And the name of our guest this morning is Theophilus Olufemi, who is a fellow chartered accountant and a chartered tax practitioner with over 17 years of experience. Good morning, Theophilus. How are you doing? And welcome to Tea or Coffee.
Yes, good morning, Ade.
Very, very wonderful profile that you have there.
Yes.
You are indeed the right person for this conversation. So let us get straight into it. For viewers this morning who are not sure what value-added tax is, what is value-added tax, and how does it affect the common man and business?
Okay, so once again, thank you for the question. My name is Theophilus Olufemi, FCA. Now, I won't be using too much grammar this morning so that our viewers can have a very good understanding of our subject of discussion today. Now, it's very simple to say that value-added tax is a kind of tax that is being imposed on the goods and services that is being consumed in Nigeria. Yes, that is a simple definition of VAT. So you can say that if you go to the market to buy TV, for example, now you pay a value-added tax of 7.5%. That is, if the value of your TV was 10,000 naira, you pay an extra of 750 naira as the value added to that kind of item that you are purchasing, and that is payable to the government, while the seller of the TV takes his own 10,000 naira. The add-on, which is a VAT of 750 naira, will be remitted to the government. So that is a simple explanation of value-added tax.
All right. I like the fact that you broke it down for us to know that the VAT is actually going to the government coffers. Now, in Nigeria, which body is responsible for tax collection, the remittance, and administration? Is it just the FIRS, or there are other bodies that are jointly working with the FIRS?
Okay. Now, in Nigeria, the value-added tax is being administered by the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Only. That is the only body that's saddled with the responsibility of collection and accounting for value-added tax in Nigeria.
All right, what kinds of goods and services are VAT being placed on, and which ones are VAT exempt? So what kind of goods and services are VATable, so to speak?
Okay, so before I dive into that question, let me quickly give you an history of how we come about value-added tax in Nigeria.
All right.
Now, okay, so prior to 1993, what we used to have in Nigeria was what we call the sales tax. The sales tax. And that was abolished in 1993 because of the inefficiencies in the structure of the sales tax. And that was being managed by the state government in Nigeria. So the federal government saw the inefficiencies that, okay, the states were not, raking in as much revenue as they should have. So that was one of the major reasons the value-added tax was abolished in Nigeria. And in 1993, I think it was the government of General Babangida, yes, that introduced VAT with the decree 102, yes, of 1993, and that was used to replace the sales tax in Nigeria. So now back to your question: what are the type of items and services that are VATable in Nigeria? Now, the value-added tax law has expressly stated those items which are exempted. It has not stated items which are not, which are covered, but items which are exempted from value-added tax. Now, but that law says that every good and services, every item that is goods and services consumed in Nigeria must be abatable, except those that are stated in the exemption list. Now, the items which are stated in the exemption list include, number one, we have the pharmaceutical products, that is the medicine you and I consume. We have the basic food items, we have like when you're talking about basic food items, we mean, items like gari, rice, elubo, the food items we buy from the market. Then we can also talk about the educational services and materials. In terms of this kind of school fees you pay, VAT is not chargeable on it. When you buy books, your textbook, your notebooks, your biro, your educational materials, VAT are not chargeable on them. Then also we have those are material items. Now let's look at the services. Services will include, pharmaceutical services, like the kind of service rendered by the hospitals in Nigeria. Then another is teaching, or say educational services. Yes, educational services, and so on. Then you can also have services rendered by the mortgage banks, the microfinance banks, and so on. So those are the items listed as exempted from value added tax. And in addition to that, we have a VAT Modification Act of 2017 that expressly states, or that has listed all the items you can think about in Nigeria that are exempted from VAT. Yes.
All right, thank you for breaking this down. So that's pharmaceuticals, educational services and materials, and then medical services are exempted from taxes, from paying VAT, right?
Correct.
Okay, now some tax professionals have called on the federal government of Nigeria to review the tax policy in line with practices of ECOWAS. Like, what's your take on it? Hello, Theophilus.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, so all right. We couldn't hear you for a bit. If you can rephrase what you were explaining to us.
Okay, so if you look at the geographical location of Nigeria is one of the ECOWAS states.
Yes.
And there was for that space, within the ECOWAS countries, goods and services, there should be free movement of goods and services within that space. And it will be better if there is equity in terms of, if we pay the same, equity with respect to VAT rates. That is, if the VAT in Ghana, it's say 10%, then the VAT in Nigeria should also be 10%. Otherwise, if you produce goods in Ghana, and the VAT in Ghana if you produce goods in Nigeria, and if you produce goods in Nigeria, and the VAT in Nigeria is 7.5%, and you produce goods in, you send the same goods to Ghana. Now, when that good or when that service gets to Ghana, it is the VAT in Ghana that will be applicable, which is 10%. That means more revenue to the Ghanaian government, as against 7.5 that would have been charged by the Nigerian government if the same item was sold in Nigeria. So what that means is the Ghanaian government earns more, while the Nigerian government earns lesser than their counterparts in Ghana.
All right, so that's a unification. I mean, the unification that is happening in Nigeria now, it has to go across West Africa. Yeah. Okay, all right.
All right, you know, taking a lead from, you know, what you've just been talking about, which is revenue generation. The whole point of a tax duty is a revenue generation scheme of the government, you know, that's not particularly imposed on citizens, but it's a necessary duty for revenue generation for any nation. Now, there's an argument that the government's parastatals responsible for revenue generation in Nigeria should be merged. How do you think this will increase the country's total annual revenue?
Okay, so merging the government agencies that are responsible for the collection of taxes in Nigeria. Now you can talk about NIMASA. The agencies include NIMASA, Customs. You have the FIRS. Those are the major, you know, revenue generation agencies in Nigeria. NIMASA, I think, responsible for import duties. Then, the FIRS responsible for tax collections. The Customs, import duties. Then NIMASA as their own. Now, in some other clients, you have all of those, you know, agencies under the revenue, that is the revenue generating agency. So what that means is, in those clients, their own FIRS, that is the agency responsible for tax generation, is also responsible for the collection of other form of revenue in those countries. Now, if we decide to unify that in Nigeria, what that will mean is that, of course, number one, the cost of collection will reduce. The cost of collection will reduce. That is, in terms of equipment used by these agencies, of course, FRS, we have to, you know, take over some of those, but some of those equipment might not even be necessary. What you just need is, you need a system, you need a platform, you need a software that people can log onto, you know, to make payments, register, make payments, file returns, and everything will work out, you know, seamlessly. So therefore, you have eliminated, you know, a whole lot of people from that system. Now, although yes, that has its implications, so a lot of people will lose their jobs. Then also, you know, the major constraint we have in Nigeria, with respect to revenue generation is corruption. Now, if you reduce the number of agencies, you're automatically reducing, you know, corruption. Okay. Another advantage of doing that is, you know, in terms of accountability, you know, that will also improve. Accountability will improve, yes. So let me leave it at that.
All right. So speaking of accountability and also ensuring that corruption is reduced. Now, when we had the views from the net, because some of our viewers send us responses as regards some of the topics that we're going to be discussing. Now, one person complained that the VAT is always been excluded. Now, you go to a restaurant and your meal, if you check the list of meals, they put 5,000 naira there. But by the time they're bringing the bill, they put 5,000, maybe 750. And they say, oh, okay, no, 5,375. That's the, 375 is the 7.5%, right? Now, 5,375 is what he's supposed to pay. But in his mind, he got there, he saw that, and he saw 5,000. And he's like, why am I paying more? Should the VAT be included in the bill, or should it be excluded, as some restaurants and some shops do it?
Now, yeah, thank you for that question. You see, the law is very clear on that. The VAT law is very clear on that VAT should be stated on the invoice. Invoice, also known as due. VAT should be expressly stated on it, exactly, so that every consumer can see that, okay, this is the amount I'm paying for the consumption of a particular item. Yes, and that should be adopted by every VAT agent, that is registered agent with FIRS.
Okay, so now I just want some clarity on that. So that means, because there are some, we see some invoices where you see the total is, let me use that same example, total is 5,375. So they put 5,000 and then they put the VAT. But some people do not tell you, ahead. They just, you know, I mean, leave it like that until at the point of payment that you realize that this is what you're paying, just to get some clarity as regards that.
Okay, so this is it. If you walked into a restaurant, you know, and of course nobody will tell you, oh, whatever it is you are buying, VAT will be included. Nobody will tell you that, except some restaurants are so generous enough to say, to paste it on their wall, to say for every item you consume, you pay VAT of 7.5 of the total sum of the item being consumed by you or being purchased by you. They could be that generous, but there's no responsibility within the law or no obligation within the law that says that somebody must tell you before. You understand? It is a law in Nigeria, so you should be aware as a consumer that if you walk into a restaurant to buy food, you have the obligation to pay VAT of 7.5%, and therefore on your invoice, on your bill, it has to be stated that I mean, the VAT amount should be stated expressly.
All right, thank you.
All right, Theophilus, you know, as we conclude this wonderful conversation, we've learned so much from you. I want you to comment on the VDI, the VAT Direct Initiative, this new technological reform in the tax collection in the country. What is your reaction to this? How successful do you think this new project will be?
Okay, so for me, I will start with, it is a very welcomed idea. It's a very welcomed idea. It's a very good initiative. Now, if you look at, like I said, the way when sales tax was abolished, it was abolished because of inefficiencies. Now, we moved from that era to the era of 5%, to the era of 7.5. Now, if you look at, our problem has usually not been the rate, but compliance in terms of, you know, the willingness of people to pay. You understand? Now, this initiative we are talking about, of course, we eliminate, you know, interface with individuals, with tax officials. When that is being achieved, that means our revenue will go up. Because VAT it should be a very transparent form of tax in terms of, okay, as a company, I have my revenue for the year, say 2022, was 10 billion. It's simple. If I am engaged in a vertical activity or activities, then 7.5% of my revenue should be VAT, and which should go to the government. You understand? So by the time I key in that figure into that system, automatically the same generate the amount that should have been remitted. And if the amount that I have remitted is not up to what has been remitted, the difference will be there. You understand? So the transparency is there, which is the major thing. So
thank you so much. I mean, I wish, this is such an interesting conversation. I wish we could go on and on. Thank you so much, Theophilus Olufemi, for being our guest today. We have to, I mean, time is fast spent. We have to go.